censorship, copyright, we kind of had a handle on that. Quality discourse, the Greeks, we've never really been able to improve on them as far as I'm concerned. And this internet stuff, ooh, this could solve that distribution puzzle. And it did sort-ish right there in the 90s, right? Sort-ish. You guys were there in the 90s using the internet. Just wasn't as neat as it is now. But the last thing I had was something to express. I had some of that. Let's explore some of those things. Here is the oldest thing in my social media artifact. This is from March 10th, 1979. This is the Pig Express. For those of you who don't recognize these kind of purple fuzzy letters, this was called a Dioxane. And you put this liquid stuff that kind of smelled like paint thinner in this little container. It had this reel that go around. And I made my little newsletters. This one here, I'm talking about the Canucks, the prospect that they might build a 62,000-seat stadium. They had originally planned to do that in Surrey, an easy place. Imagine that, eh? More charming tractor pulls, I think, if it was in Surrey. The P&E coming up, but in this case, Jake Milford was getting ready to fly to Sweden and go recruit Swedish hockey players. Can you imagine? Swedish hockey players on our Canucks? But this was my first little thing. I had a subscriber base of 35, which is about what I have now. And all this, I had something to say, and I was able to produce the content. Still, the distribution was a drag, right? You know, I had to physically create the artifact and then spread it around. So after about 3, 4 issues, yeah, it tailed off, because I really wanted to work in color. Here's a little something for the ambassador back there. As soon as I saw you up there, I was like, oh, have I got a surprise for you? In fourth grade or so, like I really like book reports were my favorite part. You know, having to produce the reports. But I look at this and it's like, damn, this is like, it's like a little web page. It's like a little slideshow presentation, except instead of HTML markup, I was using scissors and glue. So it's the same way I'd make a blog post now. If I had to do a little something about Norway, I'd put in some pictures, a little bit of text there. But alas, this is really hard to mass produce because like each one of them, like I had to cut up a magazine for the pictures, so this is it, right? Unless I didn't think it was likely to get picked up by like, you know, National Geographic or something, so it was sort of like an end life of this project. Yet I had a desire to share these projects with more people. So, I realized that, oh, the microphone. Did you miss the last part? Do you want me to recap the last part? It was really good. Okay, so then I started saying, writing a book report on Norway isn't really my life's calling, but punk rock is. And the 80s, to me, were a golden period of self-publishing and grassroots publishing because of the humble Xerox machine or the photocopier made by whatever brand that you have. And my parents were in real estate, and they have Xerox copiers there at the real estate offices. It turns out they're not free. But these were lovingly produced at various real estate offices in Surrey, and that's the Ramones there. And in here, it's starting to see like, okay, there's a kind of closing the loop a little bit, you know? You could say, here, well, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed it. Please send any comments or complaints about this zine with an apostrophe. Once again, all contributions will be used. I'm easy. And you'll get a free zine as well. Yeah. But the reason I was doing this is because I realized that you can be an expert as long as you write something that says that kind of backs you up, right? And I realized that if you're an expert and a media outlet, then you can get free shit. So this is how I got free records. This ad right here, paid for, box of records, done and done. And but it was still a little bit of a tricky distribution scheme because at the every once in a while someone would send some stamps and $2 and request a copy, and I'd have to put it in an envelope and put stamps on it. But it was a great way to start collecting and exchanging. And most of the zine readers were other zine writers. Does that sound familiar? Blog readers, blog writers. That's why I love retweets so much. You know, someone puts out a message, and then everyone else puts out the exact same message. So I got 12 copies of the same thing. All people reading the same thing. So this also gave me an opportunity to collaborate and give a little shout out to Bev Davies, who I'll be talking to at Northern Voice. Bev Davies was a huge influence on my young life as a social media maker, although we didn't call it that, because she would go take pictures of the punk rock shows, and she would let fanzines use them. Wow. So at Northern Voice, I'm going to ask her all the reasons about that. But for me, it was a really huge deal because you could start to see how people would exchange things, and then bands would take those and build up their reputations, and then you start going and you start making friends. You start meeting people through your fanzine, and before you know it, you build up through, I'm going to show you that it wasn't just me doing all this crazy stuff. This here is the DOA and Friends coloring book. Anyone know the punk band DOA in Vancouver? All right. They made a coloring book. And I should be really gentle with that. But here, hold that up for me, John. And you can show a couple of the pages. Like, you can take it out and show a couple of pages. I just don't want to mess it up. But isn't that cute? Like a punk rock band would say, oh, we'll make a little coloring book. We'll staple it together and we'll call it a publication. So then I started traveling a little bit farther afield and would always put my notebook in here. I went to Europe with a one-way ticket and $100 Canadian tucked in my shoe and a backpack. I ended up traipsing around for about 3 months picking grapes and stuff like that. But doing it, instead of taking a camera, because I didn't have one, and I thought, you know, cameras, sometimes you can hide behind the camera and it's like you'll enjoy shit later if you take a picture of it now. And I wanted a little bit more immediacy and kind of feel like, you know, going to Europe, it wasn't that big of a deal anymore. It was still, there was still borders and it was before ATMs and different currencies. So it's a little bit of adventure, but I said I'm going to go with no prior knowledge. I read a 1972 guidebook to hitchhiking through Europe, just so I could, you know, not really have any real context. And I took a notebook and some paints. And so I made some little sketches along the way. There's the guy that picked me up and started smoking heroin off some aluminum foil and drove me to Germany. Looked just like that, too. Oh, there's the guy smoking the huge joints at the Turkish music festival. Some people picked me up and took me to. And then I did quite a bit of writing on that, too. And when I finally came across this notebook again, not too long ago, I said, well, what do I do with this stuff? Guess what? Start a WordPress blog. I started transcribing all that stuff in there. And then I was digging through here, and I was going to tell you the importance, and this was a tip that was going to go in the list about how to make cool stuff, which is always have a notebook with you. And notebooks are really handy for writing poetry, but also when you're hitchhiking. You can make your hitchhiking signs. And I thought I would take this as when I went to Europe as, you know, Canadian, so people didn't mix me up as an American using some other hitchhiking school notebook. But these are kind of neat. These are kind of cool little mementos of the trip, you know, my little hitchhiking signs. But this kind of stuff, it's part of your personal story and your personal stuff, and it goes in that pile of having something to talk about. And all of you have done some kind of trip or some kind of adventure that kind of took you, oh, this one's good, taking you out of your comfort zone, and that's the kind of stuff you should write about. Good times. You'll probably notice that there's not too many slides after Hollings once you get the answer. It's really hard to leave. So I made some paintings there in Europe. You can look at them later. Then I discovered computers. And I thought, oh, I could take all these short stories of poetry I've been writing on all my trips and I can put them on this thing. But the problem is, it's these really computers with this dot matrix printing is fucking ugly. I don't want this. I don't want to distribute this. I want a beautiful book. Right? I want something that you can hold on to. Ooh, it's lovely. Look at these lovely images and you can feel the. Instead, it's like this. It looks like some tax form or something like that. It just wasn't a very fun way to distribute my work. So it wasn't long after that I decided, I learned about those color copiers that just come out like, you know, years ago. And I got a job at Kinko's. I'll let you think about that for a second. And I did 3 months hard time at Kinko's just so I could use their color copier after hours because I thought I could make a nicer looking little book. So I decided to take the influence of European post-impressionist painting and Japanese haiku and sort of mash them together. Apparently there's not a big demand for this, but I thought it was really cute. And I made some wee little chapbooks, as they call them. And it's had, look at that, color cover, pretty nice, eh? And then I went black and white inside, you know, both for aesthetic and financial purposes. And you know, because I'm really into, I kind of just jammed these in. It's not sewn together. The ones I sent around, you know, I got some nice thread. I sewed them up and hand bound them. But holy shit, that was quite a project, right? You know, I maybe made like 50 copies of them. And you know, I'm not stupid. I know 40 of the people that I sent them to. They're like, great, Dave's got some stuff. Awesome. Totally.